This is my farm.
Don't come out here and tell me what I need.
I need solutions that work and market options that are worth my time.
Small town support that sees the bigger picture.
A global network that empowers us. A co-op that's there for us every day.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Executive Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And to be frank, what a week it was. Goodness, I don't know that either of us have worked a short day in what seems like months, but in particular this week.
We've been waiting for some of this. Some of these things to break.
A lot of things that we've been keeping an eye on kind of all came to a head here in these last couple of days. Happy to describe them here for you in this video. First and probably most importantly, news that a lot of folks have been waiting for about 12 or 13 months now. The House reaching an agreement with the Trump administration over concerns of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. A lot of consideration went into this agreement. A lot of working group discussions have been unfolding for the last couple of months. And Phil, we finally saw that sense of realization. And we were joking, perhaps maybe a little flippantly before we press record. House Democrats, some of them will get to vote on something other than impeachment here before the end of the year.
Yeah, just talking to some of them over on the House floor, and some of them are just almost buoyant about the prospect of being able to vote for USMCA after impeachment, so they actually have something to take back to their districts. And we're talking about Democrats from districts that President Trump carried, so impeachment is a tough issue for them. So it looks like this vote on the trade agreement is going to be, or the implementing bill actually is what it is going to be scheduled after the impeachment votes next week.
Right, so we do expect the House to take the measure up next week, and important to note, the President and the actual organization, the AFL-CIO, has endorsed this U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, something that's not insignificant in the grand scheme of trade politics, something that really needs to be taken into account when we're expecting a vote total over in the House.
Yeah, and this is really historic in a way, because I don't know if you remember the debate over Trade Promotion Authority.
Yeah.
A few years ago, back I believe it was 2015, very divisive. Most Democrats opposed it. It was just dragged across the finish line in Congress. I had a member today say that they expect 100 Democrats to vote for USMCA. Given all of the criticism of NAFTA over the last 2 decades, that's remarkable.
Yeah, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi speaking very, very happily about the deal that House Democrats were able to negotiate. Still waiting on the public release of that implementing language. We'll be sure to write that up for you and have some analysis for you as soon as it's available to us. But keep in mind, the House of Representatives is but one chamber of the bicameral legislature here on Capitol Hill. In the Senate, obviously very happy that there is an agreement on the USMCA, but a little less happy than House Democrats were. And U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer on Capitol Hill today. There was one reporter that tweeted out a joke from an anonymous Republican staffer talking about the fact that Lighthizer was speaking at the GOP luncheon, and Lighthizer was on the menu for that luncheon.
Right. I think some Republicans felt that Lighthizer gave too much away to the Democrats, and this could be setting a precedent for the way agreements are done. Other agreements are done down the line as well, in terms of the standards and so forth and provisions. So some Republican nervousness about this. Obviously, they were not really part of these negotiations. They were between the White House and Democrats and Speaker Pelosi. So it's probably not too surprising. But I think importantly, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Chuck Grassley, did release a statement this morning, say that they were going to have a vote on the agreement, a markup in congressional speak. Didn't set a time though. So in the vote will actually be after the Senate takes up impeachment in January. So, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell making Democrats who want to vote for this trade agreement stew a little bit in the impeachment process, at least those that it may be a little difficult for.
And gives them a chance to hear about it over Christmas too, as Capitol Hill right around the corner from the Christmas break. And as Phil mentioned, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, almost immediately after the agreement was announced, the first opportunity he had to speak publicly on it, he said that vote was going to come after impeachment proceedings in the Senate, which we do expect to take place in January. So a lot to follow on that front. A lot unfolded this week, but we'll be sure to keep you up to date on all the various machinations of the discussions there. Want to discuss some other topics as well, including House passage of an ag labor bill, something that we haven't been able to say for, I don't know, since the Reagan administration, thereabouts. It's been a while since either chamber of Congress is able to pass some form of agricultural workforce legislation. And Phil, some important things to consider in this bill, the fact that it does provide that legal status, a pathway to legal status for ag workers, could also lead to challenging consideration or perhaps lack thereof in the Senate.
And it did in the House as well with Republicans, but that was it's critical for Democrats. You would not get Democrat support without doing something for the existing workforce. For agriculture, and the reason you had so many farm groups in support of the bill is it would have, for the first time, expanded the H-2A program to year-round workers, something that's really been sought after by the dairy industry and other sectors in livestock and poultry industry. But also, it would have put some a freeze actually on wages, H-2A wages for 1 year, and then would have capped increases after that. A lot of farmers have been complaining loudly about, particularly this past year, very large increases, depending on the state, very large increases in H-2A wages. This bill would do something about that.
And about 260 votes in favor of the bill over in the House, and about 34, I believe is the exact number, in the ballpark of 30, coming from Republicans. So not exactly a landslide show of support from the GOP members of that caucus, but there was support.
Yeah, and it shows how important this is in so many farm districts in California, dairy districts. That's where you saw particularly where you saw Republicans vote for the bill, even though there was so much opposition generated from groups that are trying to limit immigration and so forth.
So obviously still a lot to come on that bill. It has passed the House, but in the old song about how a bill becomes law, there's still several steps left before that could potentially be signed into law by this or any other president. I mean,
there's a good chance we may not be talking about this bill anymore. I caught up, there's no sign the Senate Republicans are going to take this up. I caught up with the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee today, Lindsey Graham, who was involved back in that 2013 immigration reform effort that didn't go anywhere in the House. I asked Graham about if he had any plans to take up this bill, and after a little bit of back and forth, he said, "That's not in my lane."
So if it's not in his lane in the Senate, I don't know whose it will be. But not looking rosy for Senate consideration of that bill. But we'll be sure we'll let you know if we hear that there's anything coming on that. But before we let you go here this week, do want to let you know of another piece of action that happened in the Senate of critical importance to foreign policy, and that being the Senate confirming by a pretty landslide vote the confirmation of Stephen Hahn to be the new commissioner of the FDA. And Phil, obviously a big show of support. 70-something votes in favor of that, and he'll take over for Scott Gottlieb, and doing something that's not really familiar to the food and ag space, confirming a Senate official or a Senate confirmed official.
Yeah, and the Food and Drug Administration continues to be an unusual story under this administration. Has not been controversial, particularly at all. In fact, Scott Gottlieb, the last permanent commissioner, was very popular on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, received bipartisan praise when he announced he was stepping down.
He did. And you saw no controversy at all about Stephen Hahn. He's a respected cancer expert. Obviously, a lot of the questions he got were about on the medical device drug side of FDA, issues like e-cigarettes and vaping. Not so much food safety, but that's obviously a huge part of what FDA does and what he will have on his plate when he gets there.
So obviously a lot of things happened this week. A lot of things we're expecting to happen next week, including the House consideration of the USMCA agreement. Also, impeachment will continue to consume a lot of legislative oxygen on Capitol Hill here in the next week. And oh, by the way, we're 8 days away from the expiration of government funding. So something's going to have to happen on that next week, or we're looking at a government shutdown
there
next Friday.
There is a lot that these folks have to do in the next week, or 8 days, maybe 9 days.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I've said it.
Yeah, some people are predicting Saturday. We'll see.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Phil might be getting tired of hearing me say it. The most influential man in Washington is not the president, not any member of Congress. It's the statue of Ronald Reagan at the airport. Folks want to get home, especially when end of the year stuff is considered. So obviously a lot to keep in touch about next week, and we hope you'll do so at Agri-Pulse.com. But for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.